Hey, what's going on, everybody? Before we start with episode 136 of the ABJ Podcast, Nick Clark from WrestlePop, I just want to do a huge thank you to our YouTube top tier members. World Champ Level A, Triple Crown Parma Chisel, Grand Slam Freak Maniac, 9020, and Raz. Currently, our memberships, our donations, our super chats are all kind of disabled. Having some issues on my end with YouTube when it comes to paid memberships, not getting that income, which kind of sucks. So if you guys want, check out the links below to find ways to support. We do have some PayPal, Venmo, if you're inclined to do a donation or tip during the show. You can follow me on all social media. Likes and shares and subscribes go even further than the donations and the monies, because that helps grow. Word of mouth is always the best way to go. Also, links below for merchandise if you want to grab some t-shirts. We do have some t-shirts available to the 13th. You can get that Fresh Prince, that WCW Dynasty, or that 420 logo. That but these will all swap out on the 13th. We have some new ones coming up that are super cool. Also, head over to the Ben Frank Connection and grab some specialty ABJ products that you can't get anywhere else but their shop. And also check the links below to follow WrestlePop on all social media. This one's gonna be a fun one. Let's start some music by the Converse Kid and get this one going.
This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
What's going on, everybody? We are live, episode 136 of the ABJ Podcast. Super pumped for this one, having on Nick Clark from WrestlePop. He is an artist that I got to meet a little while back, probably my last convention I did before, my world turned upside down. But we were in Philly, and my table was set up kind of catty corner from him, and got to buy some really cool art for him and talk to him, and we kind of exchanged information and follow each other on social media. And I interview a lot of wrestlers and a lot of talented people, and I just had Chuck on Not Cool in High School Horror, who's also another horror-inspired artist, but he also does wrestling content as well. And I just love getting new things out there for people to check out. So make sure you guys go over to WrestlePop on Instagram, follow him. He has an Etsy page, I believe, that you can go and support. All the links are below. There's tons and tons of crazy art prints that we're going to talk about his art and his journey, and cannot wait for this one. So let's get right into it. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest here today, Nick Clark. What's going on, bud?
Hey, Ant, how are you?
I'm awesome, man. This one's going to be super exciting. I'm super pumped to have you.
Yeah, man, same. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we met at the 2300 Arena. You were doing your thing there. I bought 2 prints from you that day, and these are the ones I'm super proud of. I got my Willow Nightingale, because why wouldn't you own a Willow Nightingale art, And HBK Shawn Michaels with the blue title, the Robin Egg blue title, which is, I think the only guy to hold 3 different color variants of that title. He had the white, he had the black, and he had the blue.
Oh, I guess he did.
Yeah, he's the only one.
He had the yellow, right?
Yeah, he had the yellow one. I hate the Warrior yellow title. I'm not a huge Warrior guy. Warrior can eat it.
He was my first favorite guy, and then you get older and you learn about things, and
yeah, you're like, oh,
it is what it is, know. But he wasn't great in the ring. Okay.
Yeah. When you're a kid, he's larger than life, and you're like, holy crap, this guy's crazy. Just to kind of put your order right away. So I think the same convention we were at, this guy was at, and I don't this is my guy growing up. That when I've been to so many cons, I've been around so many people, but when he was here, I could not stop looking over at him. I was in awe. I'm a Jake the Snake Guard.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were he was literally to your left, right to your left across the aisle. Yeah, him and Lance Archer were there. But yeah, there's an awesome Jake one. Now, when did you start? Obviously everyone starts when you're a kid, probably. But when did art come to you? When you're I want to be a cartoonist or draw or do this style of stuff.
Okay, so drawing was always there. I can't tell you a time when it wasn't there. Yeah. I got into comics early. I have an older brother. He's 3 years older. So a lot of stuff that maybe I wouldn't have been exposed to when I was little, He-Man and stuff, all that stuff was passed down to me. and it's all connected. It's like the He-Man, the comic books, and Thundercats, and then the Ultimate Warrior and wrestling, and good versus evil, superheroes. It's all the same thing in like my head. But yeah, I've been drawing like my whole life. Probably around like 13 or 14 was when I was like, I want to make comics.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do. Everybody from my art teacher in school, who encouraged everything I did, but to my parents, to everyone else, was like, that's not a good idea. And I get it, because it was the 90s. There was that huge boom, and then the even bigger bust, and it wasn't. Your parents are like, maybe be a doctor.
Yeah.
But I had no desire to do any of that. But so I just kept at it all my life. I had some kind of side quest, I guess you would call them, with music and other things. Pro wrestling too. I spent a couple years learning. I don't want to say training, because I wasn't trying to be a wrestler, but trying to learn the business at the Monster Factory. I did all this stuff, but it all went back to like, really just, I always went back to drawing, and comics was always the focus. I did that for a couple years, like self-publishing my indie stuff. I sucked so bad.
Now when you say sucked, do you like didn't like the work or just didn't catch on?
No, the work was horrible. Okay. I'm one of those people too. It's like a comic book thing where like you're going to draw 100 pages before you draw a good one.
Yeah, it's all reps.
Yeah, and for some reason I thought it would be a good idea with a couple of my friends to do those 100 pages and try to sell comics out of it, when I should have just sat in my bedroom at my parents' house and did my 100 pages or whatever, and then just figured it out from there. But so yeah, I guess I got a little ahead of myself doing it. I just didn't like the work I was doing. I said, you know what? Let me stop. Let me regroup. And that kind of took like 20 years. But again, like there were other things I wanted to try in my life, just like music. I did bands. I was in a cover band when I was 16 for a couple years. I had a couple bands with one of my best friends, my creative partner, that co-writes a lot of stuff with me. But yeah, so I guess around 2018 is when I sat myself down and had like the talk, I guess you would call it, like the talk with myself. Like, what am I doing? Like, because I'm still creating no matter what, but I'm like, I need some kind of focus. And I was like, let me give comics maybe a serious shot. So I just kind of like put my nose to the grindstone and just kept drawing and getting all like the art books I can on all the stuff that I knew I was bad at, like that I'm still bad at, like perspective and anatomy and stuff that nobody's ever going to be perfect at. And sometime, I think it was November of 2018, I started going to what I call my comic book college, which was not even really going anywhere. It was just two cartoonists from Pittsburgh who started a YouTube show called Cartoonist Kayfabe, which I'm wearing the shirt right now.
Nice.
Obviously, you see cartoonist, yeah, and then Kayfabe.
Pro wrestling.
I'm like, all right, well, and I knew who these guys were because I read comics. And I was like, all right, well, this will be cool. And do you remember Wizard Magazine?
That's where it used to like give you a preview of what's coming out for the month.
And it was all like industry stuff, like who's drawing what, and we're talking to Todd McFarlane because like Spawn and Batman are crossing over. Well, the channel started with them looking at all these magazines, like Wizard #1, and going on and on. But then it became basically analyzing comics and talking to cartoonists about their careers and how they did what they did and why they did what they did. And it really lit a fire under my ass. And I just, again, I started looking at it as like college, because I never went to college. Didn't want to. And then I started making comics again just for myself.
You literally just from what you said is my dream. Like if one person can listen to my podcast that's in the business and like just listens to everyone's blueprint of what they did and what worked and what didn't work, like I feel like this is such a good tool for someone chasing their dream. Like talking to people of like how you're saying, like I was really into like comics and cartoonists, but they're also pro wrestling fans, and I listen to their podcasts and listen to their interviews of them talking to these people, and they essentially give you the blueprint of the pros and cons and what to do and the don'ts.
Yeah.
And it inspired, like that's the dream of a podcaster. Like that's amazing.
Yeah. And so from basically 2018, almost every day, I would be watching these videos because they would upload them every day. So yeah, without getting too crazy and without getting too like heavy, in March, something went down, and essentially the one of the guys who does the videos, his name's Ed Piscor. I'm trying to think of a way to put this without being like blunt, but he was essentially murdered by internet bullies.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't want to get into like name calling or pointing fingers at people because that's exactly why I'm talking about this. So I'm not gonna, but you know, like through this, a group of people have connected through social media. And at first it was just us kind of sharing our stories of, because it turns out there were a ton of people who like kind of were like lapsed comic readers or lapsed comic makers who stumbled upon this channel like during the pandemic or something. And same thing happened to them where they were like, oh man, this lit a fire under my ass, and they started making comics again. So we all kind of connected, and we're all doing our own thing, but we're all kind of basically what we're doing now is we're trying to like humanize Ed through our work and through small little things. And like, for example, I don't know if you've seen on the Instagram, I post like a panel almost every day.
Yeah.
That's Ed Piscor's art.
Okay.
Which the response, that was a response to a tweet that I was made aware of from a writer who's, I'm not going to mention this person's name because this person isn't worth mentioning. But they basically insulted his art and was like, everybody's talking about how much he loved comics, but nobody's talking about his art. Show me your favorite panel. All right, I'll show you 100 of my favorite panels. And
art's insanely subjective, and everyone who creates it everyone has their own flair. And if you try to be the next version of somebody else, you never become your true version. And even if it's not resonating with somebody, like how you're saying, this dude essentially has built a community on who he was as a person, his art, doing things his way. And unfortunately, like people who just are shitty people and gave him so much backlash and letting, instead of just appreciating the art for what it is. Like I always say, man, I can't stand when people make a social media account with no name, no face, no picture, just to go on and mess with people. Like I just think it's a weird thing to do. And if it's not for you, just scroll past it and let somebody else, let it resonate with someone who it does resonate with.
That is 100% my mentality. And I don't even care if you have a name and a face. It's like, my thing is, like, if you're just a regular person and you know, I don't have the time. I don't understand why anyone would do it. But if you're like in the business of promotion, which essentially is what both you and I and anybody who's in any kind of entertainment form of business where, you know, people aren't forced to buy our stuff or whatever. But if that's your business, and 90% of your time is spent on the internet attacking other people and politicizing your business, we're not in the same business. And like your stuff can't be that good. Because because you're not spending enough time working on it because you're too busy like attacking people on the internet.
Yeah, totally.
That's my philosophy about that type of stuff. I don't engage with people. I get like, not, I don't want to say once a week, but I post a drawing of CM Punk. I get at least 1 or 2 DMs. Oh, he's a bum. I don't care.
I love CM Punk. I'm day long, baby.
Dude, I'm a punk mark. I'm a punk mark. I'm not even straight edge, I'm a punk mark.
Yeah, same.
That's how good that dude is.
Yeah.
But like, I have never in my life been scrolling on. I might read something and be like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," but I keep scrolling. I would never just like message that person and be like, "That's the dumbest thing." I don't have the time, and I don't have.
It's such a weird, weird mentality to be in. Like when you're an artist and you're putting art out there, and I use the word art obviously vaguely because I feel like your art is art. My podcast is my art. You're a pro wrestler, that's your art. Like you're a musician, that's your art. And
Making
you have
anything from nothing is art.
Yeah, and it's like you're already putting yourself in a really vulnerable space to create it and then share it, but then also to have someone like to also be like, I'd like to possibly make money off it, but you also don't want to be like always shaking your can in people's face. Like it's a really hard thing to navigate. So already you're behind the 8 ball mentally sometimes, especially if you're your personality type, and then for someone to go harder in the paint on something you create just because they don't like the person you're creating of is like it just adds to something you don't need to do to someone who's creating stuff.
No, yeah, like I did a piece a couple weeks ago and it was just a joke, and I mean the guy does it to himself, but I drew Tony Khan with Joaquin Phoenix Joker makeup on. And I watch AEW. I'm like, but if somebody's being a clown, I'm going to say somebody's being a clown. And I got a couple DMs from people that were like, they're going to put WWE out of business. And I'm not even going to engage. Why would I?
Absolutely. It's so silly. There's plenty of room in the wrestling space for every company. It's proven it. Every wrestling right now is thriving regardless of what company you're doing.
Exactly. There's room for all types of fans. And there's so many people that want to like it's one thing to just, you have your thing and you like it. That's cool. If you don't like the other thing, you don't have to tell people who like the other thing that the other thing is garbage. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to your art, I'm like, let's just some of the prints we'll put up here. Like you obviously have some where it looks like it's your style, but it's a pose or something that you got from like you looked at a photo of it. So you're kind of recreating a photo of that, or is this like freehand? Like how do you go about with a lot of your prints? Like, so the Owens, amazing. I love this one so much. If that one was there at the table that day, I probably would have bought that one. I'm a giant Luna mark.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Luna too. I actually drew that because my wife's a huge Luna mark.
Yeah, Luna. So, I have like 3 Luna shirts, and I'm also a giant. So I actually got to do a Q&A with them. I hosted a Q&A,
nice.
And I got to film it and stuff. It was the coolest thing I ever did. But Sensational Sherry is another one too that I mark out over.
Oh yeah. I mean, like Sherry, all the definitely Luna, Medusa, all the 90s ones. But so I use photo reference, which essentially is just before like I went digital was just me like looking at the picture on my phone and then drawing it on the paper while I'm looking at it and just trying to do my best. Now with my digital, it's the same thing. It's just it's on the screen while I'm drawing it, so it's right there and I can just look at it. But that's and then sometimes I'll just come up with like I did one piece that was like Looney Tunes inspired of the Repo Man stealing Randy Savage's hat.
Yeah.
In that one episode of Raw, because I was watching it one night and I was like, that's funny. But no, and the whole goal with that was one, because growing up in the 90s with all the wrestling magazines, they had all those pictures of those, like, the wrestlers in the poses, and it was just like a like whatever kind of background. Sometimes it was just like a painted cinder block wall that was like in the locker room of the arena. And it was like the promo photos that, the 8x10 kind of deals. And it was kind of wanting to like recreate some of that.
Yeah.
And also because everything I do is so I can like get better at making comics. Drawing wrestlers is great for anatomy practice. It's great because it's almost, it's like I'd rather draw from a person that exists than like a comic book.
Yeah. Or they're like unrealistic bodies sometimes, or
and then also like I can kind of put my own thing on it, whereas copying from comic books a lot, you kind of tend to be informed by the style you're copying.
Yeah. I can't look at a photo or like when someone can just go from memory and just paint from memory or draw from memory and get every minute detail of their facial expressions,
Right.
like that blows my mind. I'm someone who, like, if I look at something, I can't do realism. I suck at realism, but I can cartoon. So I can look at a photo of them and then draw them in that same pose. Like I'm almost like a photocopier. Like look at the real photo. Yeah. That's kind of how I've always drawn or learned how to draw. So it's really cool to me. Like, so a couple of these prints too, like you're taking a photo or you're using Shotzi, but you're turning her into Pinhead.
Yeah, well, she had a couple shots for like Halloween last year.
Yeah.
Where she did the Pinhead thing, and I was like, well, that just makes sense. Let me do, and I'm horror, comic books, pro wrestling, rock and roll. Those are the four things that are those are my four pillars, pretty much.
Yep. We're the same human.
I mean, and again, like the rock and roll thing. Like, I mean, I listen to music and stuff, but comic books, pro wrestling, and then when I was like 11, I found out about Kiss.
Yeah.
And like Kiss just looks like comic book pro wrestlers with guitars.
Yeah, I always like the look of Kiss. Like some of their music is cool, but like I think my version of Kiss today is definitely the band Ghost. That's like their backstory.
I've told like people, I'm like, yo, Ghost is just modern Kiss, and people get mad at me because there's like this big thing where people like aren't supposed to say anything cool about Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which whatever. They inspired everybody.
Kiss is cool. Like Kiss is a dope band. I mean, Gene's kind of shitty as a human. The concept of Kiss was awesome.
Like I grew up with a lot of musician friends, and they're like, "Oh, Kiss is garbage," and I'm like, "Who's your favorite band?" And they're like, "Pantera." I'm like, "You don't have Dimebag Darrell without Kiss, so your argument's invalid."
Yep.
But then again, totally. I'm not a big Beatles guy, and the Beatles inspired everybody. So
I love the Beatles.
Well, I mean, I don't hate them. I'm not one of those people who's like, I don't hate them at all. But I'm not one of those. I'm also not one of those like, because it just is what it is.
Yeah. Now I see like a lot like when like you're watching stuff like you're consuming it, so you just see like a still shot of something, you grab a photo of it, and then you're like, I'm gonna recreate that. Yeah,
there'll be some stuff like I'll be watching something and I'll be like, you know what? And I'll take a picture with my phone of my television.
Yeah. Now, do you have a certain style that you would say you definitely lean on when it comes to your art? Like an artist, like when we were in high school, my favorite thing is, I wish it stuck more, but like our art teacher was super dope. Like a lot of art teachers in certain schools are kind of like, they just phone it in. It's just like a study hall period where a kid can scratch on a notebook. But if you have a good art teacher, like she taught us like pointillism, she taught us dolly, she taught us like what made their art different. And then she's like, I need you guys to recreate a photo using that style. And this is the key aspects of it. Was almost like Ink Master, where you're like, you have to recreate this. Like this art teacher did that. And I thought that was so cool how she would unlock different aspects of doing different styles of art. It was like, I thought that was super dope. When you study artists, do you have a certain style or a certain artist that you pull from for your style?
There's a couple artists that are just always in the front of my mind, just no matter what. One is Mike Allred, who is the creator of a comic book character called Madman. He's drawn a ton of stuff for Marvel and DC over the years. He's a legend at this point. Also Mike Mignola, Hellboy, another indie. All my biggest like influences aren't like, they're like indie guys, but Charles Burns, who's also, I don't think he's from here, but he lives in Philly now, but Black Hole by Charles Burns is probably in my top 5 comic books of all time. But what it comes down to is essentially like a bold black line and really vibrant colors.
Got you. So like a big like a strong outline.
Yeah, and like just clean. Like, like the 90s image stuff, which I love it all, but like Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, where there's all these lines all over the paper.
I love Jim Lee.
Oh, I love Jim Lee. I absolutely love Jim Lee. I do not want to draw like Jim Lee
Yeah.
at all.
That shot of Batman looking over the city on top of the gargoyle with the blue and gray and the cape flowing that Jim Lee did for Hush, like that's my favorite image of all time. Like,
Hush is like Hush is just a masterclass in like everything just being almost perfect as far as like the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so good. The cityscapes, the anatomy, everything's just the detail is insane. That's not me.
Yeah.
I'm real, like there's also an old school guy, Alex Toth, who I don't know if he created the characters, but he designed almost all the 60s and 70s, like Hanna-Barbera characters. He designed Johnny Quest. He designed Space Ghost. He designed Birdman. He made tons of comics on his own.
Space Ghost does not get enough love. That's one of the greatest shows ever.
Yeah. And like his whole thing was simplicity. And not like simplicity as in like because it's lazy, but just like do you need every single wrinkle in an old person's face to show people that the old person is old?
Yes.
Like just little things like that, or like a simple line can determine so much. And it looks impossible to me sometimes, but it's just, wow, it's just one line and it's somebody running. It's crazy. That's what I'm going for.
Pulling out the detail in a face. If you're taking someone and turning them into a cartoon, like there's one aspect to the face that you have to capture to make the rest of the face make sense, if that makes sense.
For me, a lot, what I try to do is I try to find the one thing that is like the most distinguishable thing about that particular person and not necessarily exaggerate it, but make sure I get that as right as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that I've always found most important is where like I'll have some where I'm like it's almost all drawn as far as like the likeness, and I'm like, this is still kind of off. And then I do the eyes, and if I get the eyes right, nothing seems off.
Yeah, it pulls it together.
Yeah, so the eyes are a big part of it.
You know what cartoons for me growing up, I always had a hard time drawing, and it comes down to the dimensions. And if you're off even a centimeter on a dimension or the eye or the head, it like they look generic. South Park and The Simpsons, like if you're off on a little bit of a scale, they don't look like the character. Like everything base could be there, but if one thing, like if the eyes are too big, or like they're like they look super simple to draw, but if they're not done to scale, you could throw a whole drawing off.
Yeah, and that's like almost to me, that's like mastering that. Where like it was certain, like a guy I just mentioned, Mike Allred, like his stuff, if you pull his stuff up, it looks like it's very simple. But when I was like 16, 17, and I was just getting into his work, and I was copying stuff out of comic books all the time, I couldn't draw any of his stuff. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I probably might be able to pull some off now, but I haven't tried.
Yeah.
But I just don't do that kind of work anymore, where I'm just like looking at comic book stuff and trying to draw what's in the comic book. I'd rather make
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you're working on comic books now. What are some current things you're working on?
Okay, so right now I've got like 3 projects that are, one is just like the first draft was written, and my writing partner on that one is working his way through the second draft. Or I guess I wrote a rough draft like by hand, which that's how I used to do things. Like, oh, I got to write it by hand. I used to be like really weird about things like that. And I gave it to him, and he's working on like cleaning it up and doing like a cohesive draft that we could look at. But that's like, and it's funny because everything's like horror related. That's not wrestling. All the stories I want to tell, like I want to tell in that kind of space.
Nice.
So that's like kind of like a tribute to like 80s slashers, because that's like really my favorite genre. And I'm going to sound like a broken record or like, oh yeah, keep going to that well. But right now I'm working on something. I'm gonna release it for free online because I have to, because it's illegal if I do it otherwise. But I'm doing a Friday the 13th bootleg comic.
Okay.
And basically what I'm doing is And it doesn't matter. It's like if somebody steals this idea, it's like, well, what am I going to do about it? It's not like I can sue them, you know. And I'll do it anyway. But I'm not going to give details. But I'm basically taking 12 movies worth of a plot that doesn't really make sense when you look at the whole story, and going to make it make sense into like 48 pages. That's my challenge.
That's awesome.
My challenge is to make it like 48 pages. Like that's my big. And again, going back to Ed Piskor. He had a comic called X-Men Grand Design, which is this idea was inspired by this, where he basically took 60 years of X-Men history and made like 6 comics and told this whole story in a very concise manner where it wasn't confusing.
Yeah. That's kind of like the Chucky TV show. The Chucky TV shows did a great job in that, where they made every movie make sense, but then continued it with his own show.
You know what's funny is I watched the first season, and thinking about it, that you make a good point, but I there's so much I'm behind on. I all my friends are like, hey, you've seen it? I'm like, dude, I haven't seen anything, dude. If it's not like wrestling, like or like something I watch on YouTube or like a podcast that I'm listening to while I draw, I have to make an effort to, I'm watching X-Men right now because that's awesome.
The X-Men 97.
Yeah, I'm totally good at that.
As an artist, how do you think they did translating the old style but making it more modern?
I think it looked great. I thought I think the style looks great. Again, it's another thing with the people on the internet where I don't think they did anything that different to where people are complaining.
Yeah, I thought it was great. They modernized it enough to make it look good, but still kept it to its base. Yeah,
and the show itself is phenomenal, I think. And I mean, that's what matters. Is the story good? That's all that matters to me.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious if they're gonna find a way to take the X-Men 97 and kind of spin it into this is the X-Men that's gonna enter into the MCU, like kind of like they get that universe gets pulled in somehow, like when they wrap it.
You know what? I hadn't thought about that.
Because with this new Deadpool Wolverine movie, it's not the Wolverine that we know from the X-Men universe, like the Wolverine X-Men universe. He's from a different version. So like the Logan we're watching is not the Logan that went through X-23 and went through X-123, X-Men Apocalypse. Like he's a different Wolverine from a different timeline.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. So like they're gonna really mess with the dimensions with the rumor is Deadpool is going to essentially form the universe that we're now gonna take, where a lot of those characters are gonna get pulled from and come out into the Marvel MCU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the thing is like when they're doing it now, I think that the rights end this year, so anyone that they cast for X-Men, like any of those characters they just bought, if they were to put them on film, they would have to use the same actors. But that license ends this year, and then once that license ends, they can recast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's best. I really don't I watch this stuff when I can, but again, so behind on it. So I saw the trailer. I'm like, that looks awesome. But honestly, I don't know anything about the story or anything. There's so much going on. There's just so much going on to focus on anything really. But like I said, wrestling is on in some form or another on my television 7 days a week.
Do you prefer a certain brand right now?
No.
You just watch it all?
Yeah, I watch as much as I can. I mean, not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say, oh, it's garbage or whatever, but I'm not super big on what's going on in AEW right now.
Okay, that's fair. I'm the opposite. I'm really into what AEW is doing and not so much WWE.
And I'm not talking specifically the company itself. I think the storyline they have going on is just silly. With Tony Khan, I just think it's dumb.
That one I kind of I can for me the bloodline that was fun, and then I'm just I don't really pay attention to that. What's going on with this? For me growing up, the Macho Mans, the Mr. Perfects, the Rick Rudes, I didn't care what Hogan did because Hogan had no effect to me. Hogan's storyline did not apply to me. When it was there, it was there. If he was messing with Macho Man, I liked it, but I always
Okay.
followed Macho Man storylines. I was a mid-card guy through and through. And if like there's a certain storyline, I would just mentally turn it off when it was on. But like, so like the Tony Khan stuff, don't care. But like when Timeless Tony Storm's on, I'll eat that up all day long. When you're giving me Willow and you're giving me Chris Statlander, I'll take that all day long. I like my little segues here, but like I'll eat all those stories up. Which is like the Swerve Strickland. Really loves the Swerve Strickland stuff. I can't wait to see how he turns out as a champion. Like that's kind of what I'm eating up more when it comes to that side of stuff. Like another one here, I'll put the art up of anything this guy does. I'm in. I'm an Orange Cassidy mark through and through.
Yeah, that's probably my wife's favorite drawing.
So we were at a WrestleMania weekend show. We were at Labor of Love and Dan Champion's birthday party after they had a match between Jimmy Lloyd and Ultramanus Black. And then for Dan Champion's birthday, a bunch of his friends showed up, and two of the best friends showed up. And one former best friend. So Orange was there, Chuck was there, and Wheeler Udall showed up. So that was kind of sick.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Witchcraft by Lily, she helps me with a lot of my art, and she does a lot of she's starting her own channel up. Everyone go follow her. That was her first time meeting like a TV wrestler, and her favorite's Orange Cassidy. And
that's awesome.
She was dressed as Orange Cassidy and didn't know he was coming.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
But again, it's not necessarily like it's not the stuff that's going on in the ring necessarily. It's just for me, I can't turn off I just think of things as like a booker.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the whole show. And I'm like, okay, you have this, and this, and this, and this is all working. And then this that's supposed to be your main thing, it isn't.
Yeah. So you know what killed me at Mania? Like, to me, it ruined the whole story for 2 years. Like, I know it's so petty, but it was so dumb to me. Was the Undertaker showing up at WrestleMania? Like that did not check out at all. Like, to me, watching that, like, you end gamed it, right? So all the wrestlers that were screwed over by Roman for 2 years, they all come out to celebrate, but they can't come up and run off the bloodline, so they have that one-on-one moment. Like, it would have made more sense to me to have all those guys come out because they're the ones who've been building the story and been a part of the story, and then push off The Rock and push off all the bloodline, and then Cody has this one-on-one spot. But just to get a cheap nostalgia pop, like, I hated it.
I agree with the sense of like cheap nostalgia pops because 9 times out of 10 they don't work. I was in the crowd. I'm a little biased because I was in the crowd, and like, here's the thing, man. I didn't know until the day before that I was going.
Oh, that's so sick. Yeah.
So I didn't know that I was going, and then what are the odds that this dude who's retired is going to show up at the one run? Like, I did not expect him to show up, but I thought it was going to be Steve Austin, which would have been just as cool.
Yeah.
No, but I get where you're coming from a storytelling standpoint. Like, if I was looking at it objectively, I would probably agree with you like 100% because what you said would actually make way more sense.
Yeah, I just think like the problem, the reason I love the Attitude Era is the Attitude Era was essentially it was a time for the wrestlers to stand on their own, like Shawn, Brett, Hogan, like not so much. Like, let me erase that. No Hogan, but like Brett, Shawn, Taker, Austin, The Rock, Jarrett. Like, they were all able to stand on their own and get away from that previous generation, and that previous generation went somewhere else, and they stood on their own grounds, and they didn't have the cheap. Let's bring in Hogan. Let's bring in this person. They were going against the nostalgia of the WCW, and they were able to stand on their own feet. And I feel like that era of wrestling we always latch onto. And I feel like what's holding back the WWE more is the fact that they don't give the talent they have now the same respect and let them carry it on. Like, they're always like, oh, someone's injured. Well, you have a whole roster who are really good. Use them. Don't break glass and bring back a legend to save the day. Like, work with what you got. Use your creativity to make these talent your next generation. Like, they lean too heavily on the past instead of moving forward with the future.
I don't disagree there because, like, I mean, if you look at it again objectively, I mean, the entire story took a turn for nostalgia as soon as The Rock got involved.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that whole thing and how the story was supposed to go versus how it went and all that. I mean, whatever. But yeah, I don't disagree there. at the end of the day, though, like, yeah, it's a cheap pop, but I don't know. I'd rather have a cheap pop than no pop.
Did you ever draw the photo of Cody, like when he was sad at Mania in LA? Like the sad Cody face, like and then just have the rubber chicken when someone threw the rubber chicken in the ring, just like
I did want to do like a Family Guy riff of Cody versus a rubber chicken.
Yeah.
I just never got around to it.
That would be amazing.
I'm sitting there like in the crowd and I'm like, I hope he doesn't lose because I know like it's Philly. I knew at least 5 people probably had a rubber chicken just like waiting to throw it in case Cody lost, and I would have felt so bad.
You know what would be a dope, you know would be a dope photo? I'm gonna give this to you, and if you draw it, I'm buying it. Obviously Cody finishing his story in Philly, like it's the Rocky moment. Like you got to draw Cody on the steps, like with his back, with the back, like him looking at the city, like looking down that street instead of the museum, but like you're facing the music, like your back's to the museum and you're facing like when Rocky, like you're looking at the back of Rocky. Yeah, like that would be him holding up the title in Philly with like great. That would be a sick drawing.
Yeah, that would be pretty rad. Yeah, I might have to give that a shot.
Please draw that. My favorite all-time piece of art in wrestling history, I always bring it up, is the old Royal Rumble poster where it was like all of them as a cartoon, and it was like it just kept like falling to the back where you lose the detail of each person.
Oh, they're like in the alleyway, like
like but it was like
the street. I love that.
That's one of my favorite drawings.
That made a huge impression on me as a kid.
97, I think that was right.
I'm not sure because I know
or 90. Is it 94? I think it might be 94.
Because they did them like they did an old school one, and then they did one that was like a tribute to that one. Because there was one with like Hogan and the Warrior from like 90 or 91, 90, I think it is. Yeah, there's one with like Hogan and Warrior and all those guys, and it's like a painting. I think Joe Fusco did the painting, and then I think like Attitude Era somewhere around there they did like a redo, but with all the Attitude Era guys. I think that's how it was.
Yeah, totally.
The artist who did that, he did like the Hulk Hogan pinball machine.
Yes.
He did a ton of the same stuff, and he did like cards for Marvel at one point too.
Actually, I just found a spoof. Actually, here it is right here. This is the drawing, and then there's a spoof of it that is so fucking cool. I hope it lets me post it up here. Sometimes it doesn't let me do it. All right, yeah, it's loading in now. But as we load it, here's some other cool art. Obviously, here's the greatest division in wrestling history. Are you a Brett guy? Are you a Sean guy? I love that. That's my favorite. I love the Monday Night Draw logo. That's so cool.
Yeah, that was another thing where I was just like, let me do a weekly challenge, not weekly challenge, but like let me do a weekly drawing thing on Instagram and theme it around that era of Raw.
Mm-hmm. And but here's the drawing I talk about. This one, and then I actually forgot Texas Tornado was in the middle of that. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
I did not know he was there. But then they did a zombie version.
Oh, nice! I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, I as I searched it, that's what popped up. I go, that's fucking dope looking. The sad part is like 90% of them are actually probably dead like that, and it's Adam Bomb as a zombie. That's a cool drawing. I'm a huge Adam Bomb mark. I don't know why.
He's badass, dude. He was like,
he was so cool. I loved Adam Bomb.
he just came out and just like plowed through jobbers. It was like he was scary as hell, like that big friggin' heel dude, powerhouse heel.
Yeah. Now here's a cool one where you can mix the art of horror and wrestling together. Great Abaddon photo here.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, that was cool because I specifically picked that one because I was trying to figure out like it's probably hard to see when you're looking at it like on a screen on a television or on a phone or something, but I wanted to figure out how to make like the mesh look like mesh. Yeah. As opposed to like just another like layer of color. Yeah. I wanted to make it look actually kind of translucent, which it was me trying to learn something pretty much, which is everything I do is me trying to learn how to get better.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. So you essentially are switching over from drawing on paper onto digital art. I tried to do the same thing and I went out and bought like a really expensive art pad. but like I have to physically see what I'm like. I can't use the art pad and then look at a screen and like it mess with my head. And then to learn all of the functions of like how to make your thing smaller, like it's like relearning how to draw. Like how long did it take you to transition from paper and pen to then going to digital?
So it took me like a bunch of attempts because the first 2 times were what you had. Was basically a tablet that connects to your computer, and you draw on the tablet, but you're looking at your computer.
Yeah, that fucked with my head.
No, yeah, I couldn't do it. I mean, there's actually like drawing that I've done, but that's not how I draw regularly. Then what was it, 2021? It was the last stimulus check that I got from whoever.
Yeah.
From the government. I was like,
one of those rich white guys gave us money.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm buying an iPad. I'm going to see what Procreate's all about, because a lot of people I admired and respected in comics were using Procreate for various reasons. My original idea was just like, I'm going to draw everything how I usually draw everything, and I'll just scan it and I'll color on Procreate. I'll use the Procreate to color my work. And I was doing that for a couple months. And then one day I was like, you know what? Let me just try drawing on it. Let me see how it feels. And I haven't looked back.
Yeah, that's essentially my goal is when I get some cash, because I want to get back in art. Like my problem is I get these art books and I have them all and I doodle in them, and then I just rip the page and throw it away and start again instead of just flipping the page. I don't know why. It's just what my brain does. But I have out like I said, I like to cartoon. Like cartoon is really fun for me, but I'm too picky on myself and I freak out. But like if I can get like a Surface tablet, like I used an iPad or a Microsoft, and I can just doodle on that, that's gonna be where I think I'm gonna go to next to try to do it that way.
Yeah, it made a world of difference, because like, and there's things you can buy, like I don't remember the brand, but you know, like little like covers that you put over your tablet where it actually feels a little bit more like real paper.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, because like at least for the iPad, it's real slick.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, like, without something on it, it doesn't feel right. As far, at least for me. And I'm also super heavy-handed, so I needed a little bit of protection.
Have you ever tried to transition to like tattooing or anything?
No, I've thought about it, but again, I'm too heavy-handed. And also, I mean, if a drawing takes me 3 hours, I don't know, 45 minutes of that is erasing and redrawing, and I can't do that on somebody's body.
is this one pointillism here? Like I see like on the hand, like the
no. So I have there's a comic book effect. They don't use it anymore because the chemicals are like cancerous or something. It's called zipatone, where you would paint this chemical on your art, and then you would paint another chemical on top of that, and it would make these dot patterns.
Got you.
So now what they have is it's by a brand called like Deleter, and it's basically the same thing, but you cut it out and stick it onto your art. But I scanned it into my scanner and the full sheets, and then uploaded that, and then messed around with it a little on Procreate, and I just used that.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, because I actually wanted it to be a little like analog, as opposed to like, oh, let me just use a brush that gives me this pattern.
Yeah. And then the last two ones we'll pull up here, and then we'll get into our last couple questions. If anyone has any questions, please send them in the chat. If you have any cool questions or anything you want to put out there. You got it. I love this one. The Casey Jones Friday the 13th. Casey Jones does not get enough love. And then this one's awesome because this is one of my first episodes of Not Cool in High School Horror. Me and my buddy Courtney did a review of Terrifier.
Yeah, Terrifier. It's wild.
Art is such an animated face, man. He's so.
Oh yeah, that with David Howard Thornton.
Yeah, the movies itself makes zero sense to me because
yeah,
but like
my wife and I watched the first one, and we were actually staying in Atlantic City for a horror convention years ago, and we met my friend the next day, and I was like, yeah, we watched Terrifier last night, and he was like, how was it? I was like, well, there's a lot of cool death scenes, but like I'm not sure I could tell you what was going on really.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'll watch it. And he texted me like 2 days later. He was like, yeah, no, there's no other way to describe it, dude.
Yeah, like
To
me, it was like watching the Bray Wyatt stuff. I think visually it looked cool, but
Yeah.
in the spect of wrestling, there was never any answers, conclusions, any tie-ups, nothing. It was just really cool promos that never translated to the ring to me. And I never got onto it as much as everyone else did. And like, I'm not looking at QR codes and I'm not solving puzzles. Like, that's too much in my wrestling. I don't need all that. Like, just show me what you want and then go find a way to make it work in the ring.
I get it. I thought Bray looked cool. There's a lot of that stuff. Like, one example that I use a lot is Matt Hardy teleporting all over Daly's place when he made his AEW debut.
Yep.
And you know, it's funny because like we all say we don't like this stuff, but I mean, I grew up. I don't know, I'm like 12 years old or whatever, and Undertaker shooting lightning out of his hands.
Yeah,
and it's so dumb.
But Undertaker found a way to make that character work in the ring. Well, like even when he lost, it made sense, and I feel like that's where Bray missed out. Bray can never, like, his character never translated in between the ropes, unless he was looking strong.
But that might also be a product of how wrestling is booked today.
Yeah, totally.
Versus how, because it wasn't a committee of people 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I guess after they went public would be when the writers and stuff started coming in. Is that like the timeline?
Probably around that time. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the problem with a lot of industries today. It's the problem with comics. Comics by committee.
So here's our first question from Woods Class Elite. What's your favorite piece you've ever made?
Oh wow. It's like asking. I guess that's like asking somebody who has kids who their favorite kid.
Yeah. What's your favorite child?
Okay, so. Some I have favorites because like there's memories associated with them. Some I have favorites because I'm like, wow, I was on point that day. Like, yeah, good job, dude. And I normally don't think like that. Like one of them is it's Roddy Piper with Hulk Hogan in the headlock, but Hulk Hogan looks like an alien from They Live.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I seen that one. Yeah, you had that one posted. I'm a mark for any They Live art. Same. So really quick, I like Lords Come to Frogtown more than They Live.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's so stupid, but I loved it. Piper piece of meat. Like,
I love what like. I love trash anything really, like trash or whatever. Like one of my favorite movies is Frankenhooker. But I did one piece of CM Punk all bloody from the dog collar match.
Nice.
Standing next to Danhausen. It was based on a photo that was going around social media. And I met Danhausen at a show and I got him to sign that. And again, I'm not a sports guy, but I guess hockey playoffs were happening. And Danhausen took the picture. Took a picture with his phone of the print and posted the picture on his story, but put a giant Detroit Red Wings symbol on Punk's chest. And I guess they were playing the Blackhawks. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh wow, he used my art to like rib Punk. That was kind of cool. But like that's why that one's a favorite. But I mean, honestly, every one is my favorite when I finish it. And then like 2 days later, I look at it and I'm like, this is fucking garbage. And then I go make a new one. Yeah.
I'm the same way. I did find the one to share with everybody here. For the CM Punk one, I'll post it up for everyone to look at. The next question we'll get here is also by Witchcraft by Lily. Is there any medium that you want to try that you haven't yet?
That's funny because I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. I've always wanted to mess around with like oil painting.
Okay.
I just know that I know how I am, and I know if like I just decided to do that, that's it. That
you're buying $6,000 worth of equipment to do oil painting.
I'm just gonna dive into it, and I'm like, I'm happy with what I'm doing right now, so I don't want to like do anything else. And I was telling my wife, I was like, you know what? Maybe after I retire, grow out an afro, do the Bob Ross thing, just paint some happy trees, like you know, maybe that's when I'll do that. But no, I've always wanted to try oil painting. I want to mess around with like certain techniques like there's like a technique Andy Warhol did with like blotting, where like he would trace a little bit with ink and then blot it down and then trace the next line and blot it down. But it's this weird technique of like just things like that. And then also I've been talking to a couple people about this, like within the comics world, where like as much as I love the drawing on the iPad and what that's done for me as far as like how much better I've gotten, and it cuts out a lot of time. It saves me money from not having to buy paper and ink. I do miss traditional like drawing comics on like big 11x17 Bristol board and that really stark black and white look when it's all inked. So I might get back into doing some traditional art this year. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, you know, just like there's always stuff I'm just like, oh, maybe I'll try that.
You know, what's a really cool style I've been seeing people do is they'll draw, like I seen one, I'm not a huge anime guy, but like they drew Goku and they draw him doing the lightning bolt thing he does.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but his move, his kame, I'm gonna say it wrong and then we're gonna make fun of me.
It's Hadouken.
Yeah. I think it's essentially a Hadouken. It is a Hadouken. Yeah.
Mortal Kombat, it's a Hadouken.
But they take blue ink and they put a huge glob of it where his hands are, where it would be, and then they get a blow dryer and they just blow the ink all over the paper and then hard line trace all of the blue ink spots and then make that the foreground and then read and then draw like, or they take it with like a coffee stain. They like drip coffee or soda on it and let the stain take the paper and then use the stain to like mask. It's so cool. It's a cool idea. I love it. Or they take a drawing and they do like a 4-square drawing of like Homer Simpson, and they'll say one side's realism, one's X-ray. One's,
yeah.
Like,
there's a lot of stuff on Instagram where it's like draw this in your style.
Yeah,
and people will just, you know, like you just said, like someone who has like a Simpsons type style will draw like some random subject in that style. Yeah, there's a lot. Like when me and my brother were kids, he used to do this thing where he would draw like there's some weird shape, and the challenge would be like make that a thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's just this weird, like, blob looking thing. And you're like, what? But you just try to make it like, well, maybe that kind of looks like, maybe it looks like a horse with just like one big leg.
Yeah.
And then you just try to draw that.
We used to play this game as a kid. We would take a piece of paper and we fold it into 3 or 4 spots. And we would say top is the head. The next fold is the body. The next one is like the leg. And then like you had to like shape it in this like between each fold, and then like my buddy would draw the head and then he would fold it and then I'd have to, and he would just show me where the neck would connect, and then I have to draw a body where the body, the torso, the arms and hands where the neck would connect, but then I would draw where the waist would connect into the legs and then fold it again, and they would draw the legs, and then we'd unfold it and see our creation to see
that's
how
really cool. Like
we used to do stuff like that.
That's a really, like, I'm about to just start doing that now with somebody. That's great. That's a really cool idea.
we do that all the time. Billy Quick, if you're listening, that was we do that all the time. But yeah, so kind of go back to art and wrestling once again. The independent wrestling scene. Are you into the indie scene? Do you like going to indie shows?
Define indie.
Like local shows like GCW, or like back in the day at Chikara, or like you go to like a local show for Labor of Love, like those smaller indie shows that are on the air. So H2O shows, Monster Factory shows.
Well, I haven't been to Monster Factory in a long time, but I miss it, and I miss everybody there, and I do want to get back there. GCW when I can. We only did one show during WrestleMania weekend for GCW, but because we were down at the arena most of that weekend. MLW when they come. And then like we watch a ton of stuff on Fight.
Nice.
I've been watching recently ICW out of Pittsburgh.
Do you ever like inspired like indie people and do like, I know you do like the Makiitos and stuff like that, but do you ever like like an Effie drawing or a Nick Gage drawing? Or
I have been planning on doing an Effie drawing forever. Also Alley Catch.
Yes.
I'm a big
Oh,
fan.
bussy drawing. Please do a bussy
Yeah,
drawing.
yeah, that's my wife
Tell you
looked
what
at when we went to the GCW. It was GCW versus TJPW was the show we went to, the women's show.
Nice.
That
Yeah.
Sunday morning. She bought the bussy hat. I was like,
listen, I will be adding a bussy to my collection if you
That's awesome.
if you draw that. I love that one. Now, do you also take commissions? So say if a local independent wrestler is like, hey, I want a new t-shirt idea. I really like your art. I heard of you on the podcast. Do you do commissions if someone were to hit you up and like, here's an idea of what I want to do? Can we work
absolutely.
together?
So like that, yeah, like I do commissions as far as like if a fan is like, hey, I would like a print of this person. 9 times out of 10, if I've already drawn one, I'll be like, hey, I sell these for like $10 a piece if you want this.
Yeah.
But the wrestling, like if it's a wrestler, and then it all depends on what they want. But yeah, no, absolutely. If it's something that works out for myself and the wrestler, I'm always open to doing stuff. Always.
Awesome. I'll be hitting you up for an ABJ podcast version of a logo for you one day.
Oh, absolutely.
Once I get my shit together, obviously. Another question here. See, Henry said, is there any cartoonist past or present that you would love to pick their brain?
Wow.
I know we talked off camera about two people that resonate with us, all cartoonists.
Honestly, well, Bill Watterson would be one of them.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of cartoonists out there that I haven't had the opportunity to meet that I would love to sit there and talk their brain and like just talk and pick their brain. But yeah, like Mike Allred, Mike Mignola, never got the chance to meet Darwin Cook before he passed away. He's another favorite. Paul Pope. I'm like totally blanking right now, but anybody who was from the 50s who did like the Tales from the Crypt stuff, all those guys. I'm a huge fan of the EC, like old EC comics, like the EC artists. I'm looking around in my room now. Alex Toth, he's another one. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who created the Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
I'd love to just sit down with those guys and just pick their brain.
Yeah, I'm also like a huge fan of the old. I know it's not really comic book, but it's the cartoonish books, but like the old Winnie the Pooh books. Like I just like the art style of the old 100 Acre Woods and like the quotes that dude Winnie the Pooh dropped knowledge on people back in the day. Like his quotes are iconic. Like,
and what's funny to me about that is like, I know it's not comics in the traditional sense, but like to me, and people might disagree with this, and I'm not saying it's like some kind of fact or anything, but to me, like you said, a Winnie the Pooh book, which I guess people would classify as a picture book, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, let's say the image is Pooh and Piglet walking down a path, and the text explains that they're walking down the path, and then it's their conversation. That is the marriage of words and pictures. That is
comics. Yeah, that's 100%. I agree.
Like, I may not ever say like, hey, good job, but like you take a photograph and put a caption. If you take a photograph and then like put a word balloon on top of it, and you take another photograph that's like in a sequence with that, with a word balloon next to it that makes sense. Memes, in a way. Memes are comics.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Now, I mean, memes are comics that make absolutely no sense unless you know like 30 years of internet ridiculousness. Because it's like a foreign language at that point if you don't know like internet stuff. But it's that's an extreme example, but marriage of words and pictures to me is comics.
Do you have a favorite meme like that you look like it's like a go-to, like it always makes you chuckle?
Oh, man. I don't know if it's like a meme, and I don't know why. This is so dumb, and I'm thinking about it. There's a clip. It's like a TV clip, and I don't even know. I think it's from like Nigeria or something. But it's like a soap opera, and the woman is explaining that she's pregnant, and the guy's just going, "Oh my God," over and over again. And the way he's saying it is just. I used to say it all the time when I was like surprised at something. Not really like a favorite.
I like the Wolverine with the Jean Grey photograph where they always change. That's a classic
yeah,
one.
That's good. And see, like now there's like groups that make memes all day. So now there's not like one boilerplate meme that everybody uses.
Yeah. It's become an own art form. Like a meme art is, it's become its own art.
I can't even remember them now, but there's like a group I'm in on Facebook, and I don't contribute to it because I don't have the time to make memes, but it's literally just Seinfeld wrestling memes.
Oh, wow.
And there's another one that's just wrestling memes, but it's all Sopranos.
I need an Always Sunny one.
I think there might be one.
Always Sunny, The Office, and Parks and Rec are my comfort food. I just cannot stop watching those 3 shows. I'm doing commentary next week, or is it this? No, next Saturday at the Steamtown Mall in Scranton, and I'm gonna lace in so many Office quotes during that commentary run. Like it's gonna be absurd.
Well, I mean, when in Rome, right? That's awesome.
Yeah. I try to put more in on when I was doing the show at Suplex, more Always Sunny references, but I only got like 1 or 2 in. Someone took like a really big spine buster, and I said they're gonna become the Steel Monster after that one, like with these back brace. Yeah, love that stuff. If there is something out there besides your own art, like we talked music or movies or maybe those independent comic books that you think you want to recommend to people for them to go seek out or search, what would they be?
Oh wow, okay. You know what? I'm just gonna have to just drop some names on you. So I'm actually gonna look on my phone so I don't forget anybody. So yeah, what I was talking about earlier was about like a group that got together through the loss of Ed Piskor, and there's just so many of us. But one I would say Brian Christopher Moss. He's kind of the one who mobilized us and got us all together, and he's an incredible cartoonist. He's got a couple books out there: Desert Decay, The Eightfold Path. You check him out on Instagram at Strange Things Moss. Also, K-Fam Sunday is basically like our little hub for this little kind of community we've built. So if anybody's interested in kind of seeing what that's about, definitely go check that out. Then that would be K-Fam Sunday at Instagram. As far as indie comics guys that are out right now, I don't know what, there's people that are indie that have done work for Marvel. It's weird. Are they indie? But I'll say check out Jim Rugg. I'll say check out Mikhail Fife. He's got a really good book out called Cobra. Chuck Forsman, Michael Sweater. He's got a great book called Everything Sucks. Everybody that I know, I'm sure you would love it. It's a great book. I guess Becky Cloonan. She's not really indie though. Everybody should read Eric Powell's The Goon just because. That's not even an indie thing. That's just one of the greatest comic books ever made. And then if I could plug some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So I said about the Friday the 13th thing, I don't know what platform. It's going to be free, but it's going to be on a Patreon or something, but it's going to be on a free tier.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to start dropping that on Friday the 13th in September.
Sick. Remind me, we'll make posts or tag me in it, and we'll share it out to everybody.
Yeah, I'll be making everybody sick of it before it even drops, but it'll be
back,
at least
back when I had a consistent job. I used to love going on the Kickstarters, and going on Kickstarters, and there was a comic book I did. It was almost like it looked like the girl looked like Thunder Rosa. She was like the Day of the Dead girl, but she was like the Punisher, but she was a female who was killed and then came back Day of the Dead style, and she's like a vigilante. I want to say Mil Mortis, but that's not it. That's a wrestling thing. But I forget. But you paid $15 or $20 to support it, and then if enough people hit certain goals, they gave you free shit with it. And it's such a cool way to support independent art. I don't know, Kickstarter is such a cool app to go on and support independent video games, movies, comic books, board games. There's so many cool things you can go and support.
I've supported a few comic books. Pink Lemonade, that's another indie comic book that it was on Kickstarter, but it got published by a somewhat big publishing house. But yeah, so I'm going to be dropping the Friday the 13th thing like maybe a page or two a week every Friday, starting Friday the 13th. I may have like a little mini comic preview of that in late July. That like an actual physical one that I'll be like giving out. That depends on certain things happening that have nothing to do with me. May 27th, watch my Instagram, WrestlePop 721. I'm doing a little kind of new thing that is going to kind of, I guess, be like the unofficial kickoff of all this comic stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so check that out.
You know, it'd be a fun idea for you. Just another one I'll give to you. Another awesome art idea,
Well,
especially if you want to make a couple
ideas.
bucks. So, like a Kickstarter thing. Like if somebody wants to fund or donate to the comic or help you as an artist, you should do a thing. If someone gives you a certain tier, you'll draw them in a death scene, like their likeness as a like they'll
That's a
get
good
killed
idea.
off in your comic. You know what I mean? Like if you donate this, I'll draw you in the book
Yeah,
getting killed by my killer.
that's a good idea, because I think there's actually like some horror movie Kickstarters where it's been like a zombie movie or something.
Yeah,
like,
you can be. My buddy did it. He
if you like pay enough, you can show up on set and like be a zombie or something like
yeah,
that.
100%. I think that'd be super sick.
No, that's actually a great idea. That's like I've seen bands, like there was one band, I can't remember who, but they were like crowdfunding their record, and they were going to do a tour to coincide with the release. And one of the perks on their Kickstarter was if you paid them a certain amount of money, you could either request a song to be played at the show you're going to be at, or you can get up there and sing it with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, what a great, like, because there's so many fans who wouldn't love to do that.
Yeah, no,
Who
I
would
totally
love to
agree.
go on stage and jam with their favorite band. Like that would be awesome, right? But that's kind of the similar thing. Like, oh, hey, you know, if you go into this tier, I'll draw you as a victim in this book. That's a really cool idea. Yeah,
That'd be so sick.
I'm gonna have to file that away in the old filing cabinet.
I think that's what they did for the Friday the 13th video game. If you bought a certain tier, but they only had so many, they made you a playable character.
Oh, right.
I think that's
what. I played the game. I loved the game.
I crowdfunded that one because I wanted the Tom Savini. I'm a huge Tom Savini fan, and they had a special Tom Savini Hell Jason, and I was like, I want that.
Dude, Maniac. Maniac is like top tier Savini effects right there, man.
Yeah, I'm a Dawn of the Dead guy. Dawn of the Dead's probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
Dawn, Day of the Dead. His effects in Day of the Dead are insane.
Yeah,
but I was actually just at the mall a couple weeks ago.
I've never been there. I want to go so bad.
Dude, the Living Dead Museum is so cool.
And then isn't it like 45 minutes away? You can go to the cemetery from Night of the Living Dead. Like it's all like right by each other.
I think it was actually like a half hour from the mall. We didn't go to the cemetery, but because we were, it was the day we were coming back to Philly. But I was like, I got to go in the mall because they had like a little bust of George Romero on like the first floor. But then on the second floor, they have this awesome Living Dead museum. And it's like, I think it's like $8.
That's so worth it.
All these props and all this cool stuff. It's so dope. It's so dope.
I went to a Steel Panther concert in Pittsburgh, and on the way home I was like, we're stopping at the mall, and I pull into the mall and I'm like, yo, it's dead. Like, oh my god, I hope this mall doesn't close down. And we pull up, and I didn't realize because I don't care about holidays, like holidays and birthdays, I just don't register. And I was like, why is it closed? And it was Easter Sunday. I was like, the day of the zombie is the day I can't go into the mall. Are you kidding me?
You would think, right? You would think. That's funny.
Yeah, it was so fucking bummed. I was like, when's I coming to fucking Pittsburgh? But I got to make it a trip out there to go see it. Now that I know there's, because when I went there, we went to SteelCon, and they're like, it's unfortunate, like there's nothing in the area that really cares about the history or the tradition of the mall. Like the mall doesn't even do anything. So the fact they put something in there then is dope that they actually did it.
Yeah, and it's cool because like outside, like they had a little window display on the first floor, and then there was like the George Romero bust, and then the thing upstairs was like, I don't know, you know, what their deal is, but it was cool, man. There was like all these different rooms for all the different movies, like with screen used props and stuff. It was awesome. It was awesome.
So cool. All right, man. Anything else that you want to talk about? You want to plug before we get out of here?
Not that I know of. Just you know, if look, if you're like an internet personality or you're a type of creator, try not to let people like get to you. like what they say on the internet. Try not to like be as bad as they are with the stuff that like they say. Just like, I don't know. Let's be good to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's I don't know. I'm getting older, and it seems like it's getting worse out there, and we just need to. I don't know. We just need to stick together. You know.
Totally agree. No, and it's awesome that you guys were able to make a community based off this guy, and I'm sure if if there is something or looking down or whatever, however you cope or however people believe or their belief system, I'm sure he'd be very proud that you guys all got together and is keeping his name alive and doing the right thing and keeping him up on a positive note. That's super dope of all of you.
Yeah, and I won't want to speak for him, but I'm confident that he would.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I guess in the spirit of that, make more comics, read more comics.
Support independent people.
Yep.
They have everyone's out here doing cool shit. If there's anyone a part of your community or other artists or any people doing cool things, send them my way. Like I want to get out more just of the wrestling scene. The wrestling scene is so cool because you could pull like everyone who's into wrestling also loves horror and also loves pop culture and also it's very encompassing. But I would love to talk to more artists and comic book people and give them a platform and really break this podcast open into different ventures. So if there's anyone out there that you know, or if anyone's listening to this, man, hit me up. I'd love to have you on the podcast.
You know what? Like, and well, here's the thing too. There are a bunch of people who I don't know if they were watching tonight or they're going to watch later, but they're aware of my being on here tonight. And I mean, I'm going to send them the link when I finish up. So
yeah,
and I'll let them know. And I mean, because we're all just a bunch of people and it's not about like making it, or it's really about wanting to make good comics and not be like bogged down by the industry and the scene in it, where it's basically a scene that it's like people who eat their own. And I don't want any part of that. I'd rather just make my stuff and share it with people who dig it. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, definitely got to have you on Not Cool in High School Horror. We'll do a horror movie review. Love to do that with you.
Dude.
And then we can do the Not Cool in High School. We could pick a movie or we can pick out a comic book and read it and talk to about it. Like my buddies used to have a podcast called Pullbox Pals, but unfortunately they just did their last episode. So I can't even send you to them to talk about your podcast because they every Wednesday they went and bought a new pull of stuff and would talk about it. I loved it, but it's hard making content and they're also musicians as well, so it was hard to juggle it. But this platform's always open to you, Nick. I love you to death, man. I anything I could do to help you, please don't be afraid to reach out and use this platform.
Thanks,
my community is amazing, and they're going to show you all the love they possibly can.
Awesome, man. And thank you so much for having me. You're awesome. No, seriously, I was like, I want to be on this dude's podcast like the day we met. So it's like a year goal now that happened. So
my bad. I wish it would have happened sooner, but life sometimes kicks you in the balls, No,
but my whole thing too is it's funny because like I don't put myself out there probably as much as I should.
I don't ask enough. I get paranoid that I'm gonna get denied, so I don't say anything.
I don't know. It's some weird thing, and it's like I'm not doing this for a living. Like I have a job, but like I'm doing this because I want to do it. But like I also don't want to sing for my supper.
Yeah.
If that but like I want to earn it. I don't want anything to be handed to me.
In the same boat.
But I don't want to ask someone for a job. I'd rather someone be like, this dude shit is good enough, I want to hire him.
Yeah.
That like I don't want to have to ask for it. I want my work to speak for itself.
Yeah, I can't sing for myself, but I use my platform to sing for others, and I'm singing for you, brother. And please hit him up. Buy some prints if you need cool logos or designs for your podcast, your wrestling gear, your anything you got going on. Hit him up. He's a fantastic artist. It's the work. I walked by. There's 100 artists that were at this booth in Philly that day, and I stopped at WrestlePop. So make sure you go show him love. The links are below to follow him. Go grab some cool art. And until the next time, here's some music by the Converse Kid, episode 136. Nick Clark, WrestlePop. We're out of here.
Thanks again, bro.
Thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.